Okay, good afternoon, all of you. Let me share my screen with you. And okay, till yesterday, we are done with the fertilization process. Okay, and I need to discuss the process of development of the embryo today. Okay, so what we discussed yesterday was that I showed you this diagram. This is the structure of the ovum. It is okay, and the structure of the ovum is having a lot many layers around it. Okay, and these layer structures, these are actually meant to kind of to protect the ovum inside, the nucleus and the gamete. Okay, so we have the structure of the ovum we have, okay, and this ovum structure is surrounded by two, three very important layers. One is known as the zona pellucida, one is called the corona radiata, one is known as, and you have a perivitelline space is present, okay. And within this whole structure, this is the place where the ovum is there, and inside there is haploid nucleus is there, okay. Now, it is very interesting to know that as soon as the sperm reaches the region of the zona pellucida, okay, there are two very important things that are happening. Let me share my white screen with you so that I'm able to explain it more properly. There can be a question like that also, that what are the two major events happening as soon as the sperm reaches or penetrates inside the zona pellucida region, okay? So now this is the ovum part, okay? This ovum is having a nucleus inside it. This is a haploid nucleus, this is, okay? And it is surrounded by the layer of cells it is surrounded by. And these layer of cells, we are giving the name as zona pellucida. And along that, outside the zona pellucida, again, you have certain cells present. And those cells and the structures are known as the corona radiata. Now, let me explain you what exactly happens as soon as the sperm is in the region of the ovum, right? As soon as the sperm reaches the region of the ovum, suppose there are many sperms which are approaching the ovum, okay? And out of lot many sperm, there is one sperm that penetrates inside the cell layers of the zona pellucida. I'm writing ZP for it, zona pellucida, okay? As soon as the sperm penetrates inside, there might be some few sperm which are in the region of the corona radiata or in this region somewhere it is there present, okay? So as soon as this one sperm penetrates, okay, there is a process which prevents the polyspermy. What is the polyspermy? That it should not happen that more than one sperm should be eroding the region of the zona pellucida, or they should reach the ovum part. So as soon as the one sperm touches this, erodes the zona pellucida region, I told you that it is done through the means of the head region, and that head region is having the acrosome inside it, and that acrosome is having the hydrolytic enzyme inside it. Okay, that's how it erodes the zona pellucida region. As soon as it reaches the ovum surface region, it crosses the perivitelline space also. There is a change in the membrane of the ovum. There is a change in, you can say, the permeability of the membrane of the ovum. And this change in the permeability in the membrane of the ovum doesn't allow the other sperms to enter. And that is how the polyspermy is prevented. So number one thing, what happens when the one sperm enters inside? Actually, the membrane's permeability changes and it prevents the polyspermy. That is the one thing that's happening. Very interestingly, there's second another thing happened. As soon as the secretions from the sperm reaches this ovum inside, okay, the meiotic two phase, the meiosis two phase of a secondary oocyte gets completed, and it results in the formation of a structure that is called the ooted, that is known as. Right. So what is happening is that as soon as the secretions of the sperm reaches the inside the ovum, the second thing happening is that the meiosis two of the secondary oocyte is getting completed and it finally forms a ooted. And what happens next will be the gamete that will release its nucleus inside over here in this region. Okay. And you will have n number of chromosomes from the male gamete. You will have n number of chromosomes from the female gamete. And that is how you receive a first cell. And that first cell having a diploid number of chromosomes will be referred to as zygote, उसको बोला जाए. ठीक है, this will be known as a zygote. So what is that zygote? You have n plus n, it's becoming 2n. But n is from the male gamete, another one is from the female gamete, and that is how the first cell or a zygote formation has occurred. Okay. Now, as soon as the zygote formation takes place, there is a movement happening. Okay. Now, this whole thing is there. in the region of, you can say, the ampulla and the isthmus. If some of the books do mention that the fertilization happens in the region of the ampulla, but the best answer would be that it is happening in junction of in somewhere in between the ampulla and the isthmus region. Okay. So as soon as the zygote formation happens, the zygote starts moving down. Now it is moving down, and it passes this region of the isthmus also. And then later on, it needs to reach this uterus part. Okay. Before reaching the uterus part, it has now started dividing also. Once the zygote formation happens, it undergoes the cleavage process. It forms a 2-cell structure. It forms a 4-cell structure. It forms like 8 to 16 cell structure is formed. And this 8 to 16 cell structure is in the form of a ball-like appearance. It moves down the oviduct region in the form of a ball, and it is known as the morula stage. That is called the morula stage. This is known as. Now you can understand that a zygote formation happens somewhere in between the ampulla and the isthmus region. Then it starts moving down until the point it reaches over here. It is almost like 18 or a 16 cell structure. It is fast, very fast dividing it is. And it's a ball-like structure that forms over here. Okay. Then it starts moving down from this region. And this is the place where it meets the endometrium part. Okay. Now, what happens in this region till the time when it reaches the uterus part, okay? The ovum, I'll make a slightly a bigger diagram for you to understand. Some of the cells, they just go and form the periphery of the structure. Because it is continuously dividing, there are a lot many number of cells formed inside. Some of the cells, they take place of the peripheral region, and this is known as the trophoblast. This is known as a trophoblast. Right? This trophoblast will occupy the periphery of the ovum. And what are happening to the rest of the cell? Few of the cells just reach one polar region and arrange in themselves something in this way on this one polarity. Okay. And this region is known as the inner cell mass. It is known as. This is called the inner cell mass. Okay, this is called the inner cell mass. So you have the trophoblast cells that are surrounding, and you have the inner cell mass that is there toward the inner side. And remember that very important point. Actually, it is the inner cell mass that forms the embryo part. The cells of the embryo comes from this inner cell mass. The inner cell mass actually later on becomes a proper embryo. What happens with the trophoblast cell? This trophoblast cells, they forms a structure that is called the chorionic villi, that is known as, right? That is called the chorionic. I will look at the diagram and understand a better way. And this chorionic villi structure, it penetrates inside the endometrium layer of the maternal side. And in a sense, it attaches itself to the blood vessels. It actually intermingles itself. It's a kind of a parasitic invasion inside. To the chorionic villi, the villi move inside the endometrium region, and they start getting mixed up with the cells in the tissues from the maternal side. Okay. And slowly, it actually becomes the part of a very important structure, and that is called the placenta. Right? This is the placenta, which will, for the next of the gestation periods of 9 months, it is going to provide important nutrition to the oxygen, whatever the excretory waste products generated inside through the metabolism need to be excreted out. So many functions of the embryo is performed through this placenta, through the maternal blood. Okay. So remember that in your syllabus, it is only till this place. Now, this structure in front of you is known as the blastocyst. This is known as, right? This is known as a blastocyst. This is known as, and the cells of the blastocyst are known as the blastomeres. These are known as. These are called the blastomeres, right? The blastomeres, which are there on the periphery, they will form a layer that is called the trophoblast. The blastomeres, which are there in the inner region, and a group form in one of the polar sides of the ovum, it forms the inner cell mass. And this division or the phase of the embryo is known as the blastocyst. So during this phase of the blastocyst, actually, the chorionic villi starts developing. It invades inside the endometrium. And that is the point at which actually the process of implantation is happening. Right? So now I think this is very clear in your mind. Right from the fertilization process till the implantation process, sometimes questions do come like that also. Okay, sometimes the question comes like that also, that discuss the events happening from the fertilization till the implantation. Okay, so obviously in your course, after the implantation, the development is not there, where we talk about the gastrula formation and the differentiation of the layers, extraembryonic layers, and that is not in the course. That has not been mentioned in the NCERT, but there is one diagram given in the NCERT. It's quite a complex diagram, and I will be discussing in what's there in the diagram. Okay, but till the meantime, what we need to understand, where the fertilization is happening, number 1 point. After the fertilization, what start? The cleavage process start. That is known as the division. So what is happening in the cleavage process? The zygote is dividing. It is dividing, right? And dividing to 2 cells, 4 cells, and 8 to 16 cells. As soon as it forms this 8 to 16 cell structure, you start calling it as a morula. We say that it's a morula, it is, okay? This morula again keeps on dividing. It forms a stage that is known as a blastocyst stage, okay? Blastocyst stage have got two ways in which the cells are arranged, okay? The cells which are there on the peripheral region, they are known as the trophoblast cells. Again, these are known as the blastomeres, obviously. Each cell is known as a blastomere. The ones which are there on the membrane part, on the peripheral region, are termed as a trophoblast. And the group of cells that become the one polar part of the ovum, that is called the inner cell mass, okay? And finally, you have this inner cell mass that develops into the embryo. What's happening to the trophoblast? They are actually forming the chorionic villi that are forming. And the chorionic villi, later on, it invades to the endometrium lining and finally forms the placentas. And this placenta is a structure that helps in exchanging all the nutrients from the maternal blood to the to the embryo. Okay, fine. So we have these structures present. Okay, one more confusion at times the students are having, that what is the umbilical cord? Umbilical cord. Okay, so the umbilical cord is a cord that is CORD. It is umbilical cord, right? So what is the umbilical cord? It is umbilical cord is a structure. Actually, the structure is the connection between the growing embryo. It is a connection between the growing embryo and the mother. Remember this thing. It's a connection between the growing embryo and the mother, and that is called the umbilical. What is the placenta? It's a placenta. Kya cheez hai? It's a disc-like structure. It is right. So what is a disc-like structure? Like something like this. You have something like this is larger. I should be making a bit more larger. A disc-like structure. It's a placenta. And what is the umbilical cord? It's a kind of a cord-like structure, a tube-like structure through with many blood vessels. It's highly vascularized in nature. And this is the place from where the connection between the embryo and the mother is happening. Okay? Let me come back to one diagram that is given in the NCERT. And this diagram is important because it's last year, this diagram was asked in the NCERT and the CBSE examination. Generally, they don't ask such complex diagram, but I remember 2 years back, they did ask this diagram. Okay, this is the diagram that's in front of you. Okay, so remember, this is the diagram of the human fetus inside the uterus. It is okay, and there are many concepts over here which are not actually discussed in the theory part of the NCERT. So we'll not touch those things. But obviously, the diagram need to be practiced because the diagram is important. My screen is not yet shared. Let me just wait for a while. Still not shared, saying it's loading. Okay, so once this diagram is there in front of you, okay, and this is a very important diagram. Right now, it is showing it as shared. Now, this is very important diagram which states which gives you a very exact way in which the fetus is attached to the mother, okay, to the maternal structure, how it is attached, okay. The detail of this diagram is not very much mentioned in the NCERT, but few of the things need to be discussed, okay. So what are the things we need to discuss over here? Number one, obviously, This is the embryo that's present. This is the uterus. This is the diagram of the uterus in which embryo is growing in that region. So what is surrounding that thing? Okay. So number one thing you have, this is the region of the umbilical cord. Can you see this cord-like structure? This is called the umbilical cord, it is known as, and it has got lot many blood vessels inside it. And that is actually the attachment of the structure with the maternal region. Okay. Now, what else is present in order to attach itself to the maternal tissue? Okay, you have this chorionic villi, which is also called the placental villi. These are known as, what are these villi? These are the small finger-like processes. The same something which we have learned in the intestinal region also. These are also termed as a placental villi, which are the finger-like processes. And these processes are entering the tissues. They are invading the tissue of the mother, okay? And that is how it is obtaining nutrition from that region, okay? Apart from that, you have the yolk sac is present. This is a small, very small little amount of it because it's mammalian embryo it is. So yolk is not required in much amount. So very little bit of yolk sac you can see it's located in this region. And then you have this whole pink color structure that is the cavity of the uterus and plug of the mucus in the cervix. It means that it needs to hold the embryo till that gestation period. So you have that plug of the mucus in the cervix region, okay? So this is the structure, again, a very important structure. You need to practice the diagram. If you don't practice the diagram, you won't be able to draw it in the examination, that's for sure, because it's a bit complex diagram. And whatever labeling is there, obviously, the labelings are important. Sometimes related to the labeling, they ask certain questions also. Function, significance, what is the significance of the placental villi? What is the significance, Mukesh? What is the significance of the umbilical cord? What is the significance of the placental villi? Such type of questions are asked, okay? So make sure that you are practicing these questions, okay? Fine. Let me need to erase this thing. Fine. Now, apart from this whole structure, okay, we talk about the pregnancy and the development. We talk about most of the things I've already discussed, like where the chorionic villi is developing. It is developing from the trophoblast region, okay, and then finally it forms a structure that is called the placenta. Now, what is the role of the placenta? Okay, obviously, placenta is required for transferring so many substances, and the main two substances or the ingredients that are transferred through the placenta are actually one way very, very important, the supply of the oxygen needs to be maintained to the growing embryo because the metabolism happening, non-stop supply of oxygen needs to be maintained. And second very important thing for the growth of the embryo is the nutrient part. So both the things, remember, are coming from the mother's end and it is coming through the structure that is the placenta, right? And that placenta is having that chorionic villi it is having and that is invading the uterus region, okay? Fine. Placenta is again connected to the umbilical cord, and that umbilical cord is a connection between the mother and the embryo. Okay, fine. One more thing, very important is there that the placental structures actually, once the pregnancy sets in, okay, and the gestation period starts, okay, the placenta also becomes a very important endocrine system or endocrine tissue it becomes, okay. And not only see when you're talk when the question comes like that, talk about the function of the placenta. So you need to talk about both the things, right? It is transferring the material that needs to be discussed. It is transferring very important oxygen, nutrient. It's a disc-like structure, transferring all these things. One more very important thing is that sometimes question comes asking you just the endocrine function of the placenta. Apart from these two functions of transferring this thing, nutrient and the oxygen, placenta is also acting as an endocrine organ it is acting, right? And it is releasing certain hormones it is releasing. So you have one very important hormone that is called HCG. H is for the human and you write it in a small letter and CG is for the chorionic gonadotropin hormone it is, okay? And very important one more hormone is HPL. Remember these hormones are secreted by the placenta. You have HPL, human placental lactogen hormones. Then you have a two more different hormones are there, which was, if you remember, initially secreted by the ovary, but now it is taken up by the placenta. You have progesterone hormone is there, and you have the estrogen hormone. And all these hormones are basically, and especially if I talk about one more hormone is there that is there in the a later phase of the, you can say, the pregnancy. That hormone is called the relaxin hormone. Okay. And out of these three hormones, SCG, HPL, and the relaxin, these are the hormones produced in the blood of the woman only if she is pregnant. Okay. Relaxin is a hormone produced when towards the later phase of the pregnancy, when the birth of the baby is about to happen. That relaxes the uterine smooth muscles, relaxes for the easy, you can say, the delivery of the baby. Fine. So, what are these hormones actually doing? The levels of these hormones, not only these hormones, SCG, HPL, progesterone, estrogen, then cortisols are there, prolactins are there, thyroxins are there. Okay. All these hormones are in a very, very high amount inside the maternal blood. Okay. During the time of pregnancy. Remember this thing. So, when I'm talking about this, when I'm talking about the function of the placenta, make sure that these things are also discussed. Okay. So if I want to share it through the white screen, right, it can become a 3-marker question also, like the functions of the placenta. So let us discuss the functions of the placenta. Functions of placenta, right? Functions of the placenta can be discussed under 2 different headings, right? Number 1 is when we talk about the exchange of material. When we talk about the exchange of material, that is one function of the placenta. Okay. There is one more way we can talk about it as an endocrine tissue also. Endocrine tissue. Right? Under this particular case, when you talk about the endocrine tissue releasing, I just told you one hormone, human placental lactogen is there. Then you have human chorionic gonadotropin hormone is there. Then you have progesterone is there, right? If you remember earlier, progesterone was secreted by the corpus luteum, but later on the placenta development happened. It has been taken over by the structure. So you have the progesterone, and then you have the estrogen also, right? So you have all these structures are there, progesterone and the estrogen. So if somebody is asking you what is the function of the placenta, very specifically talk about the endocrine function and why these things are so much important, right? Why the placenta needs to liberate these hormones. It is because the embryo is growing, and with the growth of the embryo, there is a lot of metabolic changes happening inside the embryo. There are a lot of metabolic reactions happening inside the embryo. So whole of the metabolism, the activity inside the embryo, the cells, the tissues, the making and differentiation of the different layers, membranes, organs, and all those things. Okay. So a lot of metabolism is happening inside the embryo. For this metabolism to happen, a lot of hormones are required. Not only these hormones, I just talked about certain hormones, even the cortisols are there, thyroxine hormone is there. All these hormones are being produced in a good large amount. Okay. Let us talk about another function of the placenta, which you all know. It's the exchange of the material. So obviously, when we talk about the oxygen, we talk about the nutrients, right? Not only nutrients, we talk about the waste products also, like urea and all those things. So waste products, it goes the other way around from the fetus to the mother. It moves, okay? But the exchange of all these structures are very important and becomes a function of the placenta. One more is there. We talk about one more hormone as we're talking about the hormone over here. We talk about a relaxin hormone also sometimes in 1 or 2 marker question. What is the source of the relaxin? It's not the placenta. It is actually the ovary part, remember. So you all know that ovary is also an endocrine system. It's all kind of endocrine tissue it is, okay? So relaxin is a hormone that is coming from the ovary it is coming from. And what is the function of this relaxin? The role of the relaxin is to relax the smooth muscles at the time of the delivery of the baby. The smooth muscles of the uterine smooth muscles we talk about. We talk about uterine smooth muscles we are talking about. So all these uterine smooth muscles, all these uterine smooth muscles are actually need to contract and relax. And for this purpose, during the later phase of the pregnancy, when the delivery of the child is about to happen, okay, the ovary is releasing a hormone that is called relaxin. One question also comes in examination. It's a one marker question it is, but what are the name the three hormones which are present in a woman? What are the three hormones present in women only at the time of pregnancy? The three hormones which are present in a woman's blood at the time of pregnancy. Okay. So pregnancy, NANCY. Right. Okay. The three hormones are one, two, three. Sometimes they ask the location of the source of the hormone also. So you're going to write HCG. You're going to write HPL, placental lactogen, and the relaxin hormone. Right? So these are the three hormones that are liberated by the woman at the time of the pregnancy, only during the time of the pregnancy, if the woman's blood is having these hormones, and especially these two hormones का source क्या होगा? इन दोनों hormone का source है, you have the placenta, right? So placenta is the source of this hormone. What is the source of this hormone? It is the ovary, which is the source of this hormone. Okay, so you have the placenta, you have the ovary, the source of, and the role means what? The role. What is the meaning of the role? Role means that we are talking about. Maybe the role in the pregnancy only. So overall, you can write that these are all are contributing in the metabolic functions of the ovum. They all are contributing in the metabolic functions, right? They all are contributing in the metabolic functions of the embryo. Fine. And obviously about the relaxin, I've told you, uterine muscles are relaxed and the smooth muscles are relaxed at the time of the. So this is produced in the later phase of the pregnancy. Okay, fine. And again, I discussed about the diagram also. That diagram is also very important. So make sure that you are going through that diagram also. Once again, I'll play emphasis on this diagram. So this diagram, which is in front of you, is again important because this diagram is actually coming in examination as a 3 marker. And if along with the diagram, they're asking you the functions of the labeled part, then it becomes a 5 marker question. Okay. So make sure you are going through the diagrams in a very proper way. Fine. Okay. Draw the diagram, make it again and again. And once you make it again and again, obviously it becomes a bit clear. And that's how you're able to draw the diagram in the examination. If you don't practice it earlier, then it becomes very, very difficult for you to draw a proper diagram. And in biology, every time I've told you that not only the diagram making, it should not look like a rough diagram. Okay. So when you draw it again and again, you keep on practicing. And that is how you are able to draw the diagram properly. Okay, fine. Now, once this implantation has happened, okay, once this implantation has happened, obviously, the embryo will start differentiating itself and the layers will take different position. The cells will take their position. So out of that, you have the 2-3 layers are present. I think, is my screen shared? Can anyone reply, please? Okay, now it is showing it is shared. Fine. So as soon as the embryo formation happens, okay, we use one word over here, the differentiation. Okay, we don't use the word division over here. There's a difference between a word division and a differentiation. Okay. So as soon as embryo formation has happened, remember the whatever the cell, the blastome is, as we are talking about, okay, they start taking their places inside the ovum, inside that egg, or now you don't use the word egg and ovum, you say it's an embryo, it is now. So what happens is that the cells starts arranging themselves, okay? The cells which are towards the outer layer, we start calling them as an ectodermal layer. The cells which are towards the inner side, we start calling them the inner endodermal layer, okay? And obviously, because there are certain cells towards the inner side also, and these inner cells later on forms the mesoderm part. So you have ectoderm on the outer side, endoderms on the inside side, and the mesoderm is there, okay? आउट ऑफ दीज 3 layers, the inner cell masses जो उसमें present होते हैं, उसमें कुछ cells जो होते हैं, they actually don't participate exactly in the formation of the cells of the tissues, and they are known as the stem cells. Now, the stem cells have got a very important property that they can give rise to actually all the tissues and the organs. This is very interesting fact. Okay, stem cells are also there in the placental region. It is also there in the fluid that is there in which the embryo lies. Okay, and what is the role of the stem cell? The stem cell has not yet differentiated. Right, the stem cell is not yet differentiated. So what's going to happen is that the stem cell has got the property to form all the tissues and the organs. Right, it has got a property to, it has got a potency, you can say a capacity to form all the tissues and the organ. Remember, where are these stem cells located? They are in the inner cell mass region. Okay, and they become a very, very important point, important part of the whole gestation period. Okay, and these stem cells later on develops into different type of layers, but the stem cell has got a property to develop into all the tissues and the organs of your body. Okay, it is not a differentiated. So we say that it has got the property to form everything of your body. So you must have known this thing that there is a stem cell bank also present. Okay. So what are these stem cell banks? Okay. When the birth of a baby happens, in the placental cells, in the fluid, these stem cells are located. And if we keep them secured and under a sub-zero temperature, okay. So later on, if sometimes maybe a kidney failure happens, maybe a heart failure happens, something like that happens, a liver failure happens, these stem cells can be used because it's from the same individual to develop that particular organ. Okay, and that's how the transplantation process can be done. Okay, right now it's in a very initial stage of the research work, but still there is a chances that in the later, in the further maybe in 20, 30 years of time, you will find that every second individual is storing their stem cells. The stem cell banks are located, and so that in the later stages of your life, whenever they face with some kind of a problem, then these stem cells can help them. Okay, fine. So finally, we are not discussing rest of the development of the embryo. So till the blastocyst, it was there. So slowly, the development of the fetus is happening. The hair starts developing. The movement of the head starts over there. They've mentioned certainly what happens in the 5th month, what happens in the second trimester. That's 24 weeks. Body is covered with the fine hair. Eyelids are separated. Eyelashes are formed. Okay. So simple things they have discussed over here. So you should be knowing about them. Fine. Okay. Now, once the average time span of this period is gone, okay, this is known as a gestation period. This is known as what is the gestation period? It is the time span of that 9 months of the human pregnancy in which the fetus develop inside the mother's womb. That 9 months of an average time they have taken, and this time is known as gestation period, known as okay. And this gestation period is further leads to what is known as, after the 9 months of time, it leads to the childbirth. Okay, and for the childbirth in biology, the term used is a parturition, is a term that is used. So what is a parturition? It's a childbirth. What is the gestation period? The 9 months of period during which the human pregnancy happens and the fetus and the embryo grows inside the mother's womb. We say that's a gestation period. That is okay. Now, again, certain very interesting facts are over here. That is parturition process. The process starts from the fetus end. It doesn't start from the mother's end. Okay. So it starts from the fetus end means when a fetus is fully grown, right? Two things are important. When the fetus is fully grown, fully developed, it's ready to come outside the mother's body, it sends signals to the mother's blood, okay, and to the placenta. And when it sends signals to the mother blood and the placenta, there are certain type of mild contractions, uterine contractions happen, which are result of the fetal ejection reflex that is known as FER. Very important. FER. That is the fetal ejection reflex. So what is a fetal? When a fully developed fetus, right, fully developed fetus sends certain signals, right, to the placenta, to the mother's blood, that leads to the uterine contraction. It's a very mild kind of uterine contraction it is initially, and that is known as a fetal ejection reflex. So remember, it is not the mother's body which decides for the ejection process. It is the fetus that decides. When it is mature enough, it will send the reflections to the mother's body. That's how the uterine contraction starts. Okay. Now, when this contraction starts, okay, it triggers certain chain reaction, right? So when this fetal ejection reflex is there, it leads to the release of a hormone that is called oxytocin, right? It leads to the release of a hormone that is called the oxytocin. And this oxytocin is released from the maternal pituitary, means mother's pituitary gland is released, okay? Oxytocin increases the uterine contraction. Now you can understand what happens when initially the fetus is developed fully. It starts liberating certain reflexes to the placenta, to the mother's blood. That leads to the uterine contraction, but that uterine contraction is a mild contraction. Okay, this mild uterine contraction gives signals to the mother's pituitary to release a hormone that is called the oxytocin hormone. And this oxytocin hormone continuously gets released and produces stronger and stronger contraction, right? And this stronger and stronger contraction allows the expulsion of the baby from the birth canal. And that process is known as the parturition, that is known as, okay, fine. So many a time questions are asked, what is the fetal ejection reflex? So where it is generated from, what is the result of a fetal ejection reflex? So what it is, it's a reflex action which is sent by the fully developed fetus to the mother's blood. What is the result of the FER? What is the result of the fetal ejection reflex? It leads to the mild uterine contractions. Okay. Then what happens? These mild uterine contractions send signals to the mother's pituitary. Fine. And this mother's pituitary is going to release a hormone that is called oxytocin. Oxytocin increases the contraction. It keeps on increasing stronger and stronger. And that's how the baby's expulsion happen. And that process is called the parturition process, that is known as, okay, fine. Obviously, when all these processes are happening, because initially the mother needs to feed the baby also. So toward the end of the pregnancy, the mammary glands also becomes differentiated and leads to the process of the lactation. The first milk that is produced in the initial few days of the birth of the baby, that is called the colostrum. That milk produced is called the colostrum. And this is very important for the baby because this colostrum is actually having good number of antibodies in it. So in the initial phases, few months, maybe 2-3 months, when the child's body is still developing the antibodies against the environment, okay, environmental, maybe microbes and all those things. These antibodies, which are it is directly taken in the form of the colostrum. Okay, it is actually preventing the child to get any kind of harm from the outside world. Okay, generally doctors suggest to take breastfeed the child for at least 6 months of time. So during that 6 months of time, the baby's body is now ready to produce its own antibodies, and till the time mother's colostrum and other things, they help in managing, you can say, uh, the antibodies of the baby. Okay. Now, again, the breastfeeding during the initial period of the infant growth, therefore, is recommended by the doctors for bringing up a healthy baby. So, colostrum is the main reason why it is recommended. Sometimes the question just comes like that: why doctors do recommend? See, that's the last line. And the last line becomes a question. Okay, last line becomes a question: why does the doctor recommend this breastfeeding in the initial period of the infant growth? So you need to talk about the colostrum, you need to talk about antibodies, and these colostrums and the antibodies help the baby to become healthy because during the initial phases of his development, it's not able to produce that many number of antibodies. So इसको ready-made antibodies mother से मिलते हैं इसको, and that is how the healthy baby is helpful in bringing up the healthy baby. Right. So I think we are done with the chapter. And it's a very interesting chapter, at the same time quite lengthy, and a scoring chapter also it is. You get to score good marks from this chapter. So make sure that all the diagrams are practiced nicely and you are able to understand each and every line of it. All the definitions, the important points, the important terminologies are very, very important in this chapter. So make sure that you are going through it very nicely. Okay. So I wind up my lecture for today. And from tomorrow we are starting with a new chapter, that's the reproductive health. Thanks so much for joining.